want you to tell me about IQ.
Oh, dan. Dude, so
this is your best take.
Oh,
One of your
thanks,
best
dude.
takes.
Thanks, bro. I'm sure. I think I probably just copied this from someone else, frankly, but it's been very useful for us, right?
Yeah.
Like, the question is like, hey, what's the number one indicator for success in the workplace, right? And like, I don't know, dude. I wanted to answer hard work. Like that's
right.
Like that's the correct answer. You know what I mean? Like if you're integrity,
yeah.
Okay, baby. Like integrity, passion, hard work, grit. Those are all great answers.
Yeah.
Like the scientific answer, or the probably we'll say correct answer is actually IQ, which sucks. You know what I mean? Like,
we're canceled.
Yeah, dude. It's like I know. It's like
officially canceled.
Dang it. Luckily it doesn't always apply to entrepreneurs. Praise God. Okay, that's how we snuck in. Okay. Yeah, it's IQ. So it's like if you could be either born in the 95th percentile for wealth or 95th percentile for IQ, you should choose IQ, because by the time you're 40, you're like just as wealthy and you're still smart.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and really IQ is your ability to solve nuanced problems. And so like a lot of people in workplaces, it's like this guy just doesn't listen or he doesn't try. And the reality is, it's like, no, like his ability to solve problems is less than yours, right? Like if you have a team, if you've got a team of, like 12 people, you'll notice that they tend to gravitate towards one or two people on that team to ask all the questions.
Yep.
Those are probably either you're way more experienced, so they've got crystallized IQ, or they've got, fluid IQ and they can just naturally solve problems, right? And those are the people you should make managers, right? Because they can solve problems. But yeah, so like sorting, when you are hiring, you can't give them an IQ test, but you can basically break it down and get something very close from like a cognitive assessment.
Yeah, which is how do you assess it?
Yeah, from an assessment perspective, so you got IQ kind of breaks into three main categories, right? Which is like verbal, spatial. Well, I guess maybe I'll talk to each one of them individually, but like verbal is if you're sitting with the person and you're having a conversation, you can hear verbal IQ by the syntax, the vocabulary they use, and that's going to dictate what they can understand when you say it, right? Like if you give them instruction, if you give someone on your team instructions and they just got it, like they knew what the project was, okay, that's probably high verbal IQ, or more like likely to have higher verbal IQ.
Yeah.
Whereas the person that you're like, I explained it to them and they brought me something totally different, that could be a verbal IQ issue, right? Or if writing is an easy way to tell, you know what I mean? Just in general, like if you have them write a little 5-paragraph essay or something, right?
Well, what we do that's super interesting is when somebody wants to propose an initiative or something new, we have them write a memo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this is like the typical Jeff Bezos. I think it's Bezos.
This is also the difference between like when you're plus 10 million, right? Like all of a sudden you have to push things to writing because you need a process around the conversation. Yeah. Not just verbally. Anyhow, but yeah.
So, and I think that's from Bezos, especially because then the conversation about the new initiative, everybody reads the memos before and then everybody's on the same page and then you just like discuss what actually matters, right? Yeah. But the interesting thing about it is when people write a memo, number one, if it's not that important, they won't write a memo.
Yeah.
Number two is a lot of times they'll write the memo and then they themselves will see, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. And then they just stop writing the memo. Number three could be they write the memo and then you're like, oh, I haven't really had this on anybody on my team, but you could write a memo and then it's like, what is this?
Yeah.
Because it's a reflection of their thinking.
Yes.
Number four is they write the memo and you're like, damn, this is really good.
Yeah.
Right. Like, this is really insightful.
Yeah. It's a reflection of their thinking. And you want to know how people think. You want in business, not in art, but in business, right? Some of the best thinkers are structured thinkers, right? So do they put things in categories? Do they put things in pairs? Do they use a framework, the way they think about things to solve problems, right? And obviously you can see that if they write something, you're going to see a framework. Right? It's going to start with like the agenda, like the bullet points. Structured thinkers win in business. Yeah. And so if you get in, like if you're having a conversation with them and they're using fancy words, right? Like, okay, that's likely higher verbal IQ. If you give them a problem to solve and they use a framework or a structure to solve it, that's likely also higher IQ.
We all have those people in our organization where it's like, yeah, if I just tell it to this person, I don't have to explain it twice. Like, I don't even have to write it down. Yeah. They just...
They get it.
Yeah. Those are high IQ type of people. They have, I call it like high processing power, which is probably my political correct way of saying it, but they have that. So in the hiring process, you could assign them a task. One thing that I should probably do, I don't do this, but after you were saying it, is even maybe have them read my company memo, which
Yep.
like I wrote a 34 page, like you talk about a freaking memo and
Dang, dude.
writing. I wrote like a 35 page,
Quality.
like what's the plan this year? What was the thinking behind all the decisions? What was the thinking behind all the decisions last year?
Nice.
What did we learn? What's, coming up in 5 years? Have them read that and then write a memo to the memo, challenging any of the ideas
I like
or
that.
whatever. Anything that I guess I could get them in writing.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Writing
to
and
see,
demonstrate your thinking in writing.
yes, to see what that would be. Any other ways you could test for this stuff in
So I
the
mean,
interview
yeah,
process?
dude. So it's like okay. The 3 are verbal, spatial, and memory. And so like what I like to do is train something at the beginning. Like I might whiteboard something out. I'm gonna come back and have them train it to me at the end of the interview.
Okay.
Right. I think that like as I'm interacting with them, hearing them talk, I'm gonna gain just like an understanding of syntax, vocabulary, whatnot. That's an indicator. And then like you can use tools like we use Brick, like BRYQ, and they have a cognitive score in there as well. And so like you can use tools like that. I feel like those are very useful because I think the interview you want to focus on, get them as close to actually performing their job as possible, right? Like assurance that they're going to do the job. Like on one side, if I say like, "Are you a good media buyer?" and they say yes, I know nothing more. Like I gain freaking 0.
What were they going to say? No.
Yeah, like what were they going to say? No. It's like I gain 0. You know what I mean? Whereas if I have them buy media against one of my accounts for a week, it's like, okay, I know if they're good or not. You know what I mean? Like this is doing the job and this is totally useless. So I think in the interview, you want to get them as close to actually doing the job as possible, and be looking for the words they're using, their thinking, and then memory, right? Like what I talked to them about in the first interview, were they able to draw back to that in the second interview, right? Those are all good components. Because the other thing is like you can explain something to someone, they have to understand it. That's verbal.
Mm-hmm.
2, after they understand it, they have to remember it.
Store it.
Yeah, store it. 3, and then or 2, and then 3 is like where did they store it? What did they connect it to? Right? When do they reference that information? You can know a lot of things and remember a lot of things, but if you don't reference them in the appropriate times, right, to solve the right types of or to solve the particular problem at hand, then it's useless information.
Yeah.
Right? And so you kind of want to.
Yeah, well, I will say over time, and it's interesting you say this because I've gradually just with my own interviews over time, even for sales guys, because what we do is we can work with a business that might be, just starting off all the way to like, we have sometimes, I mean, it's rare, but like we'll have sales calls, maybe like one every other month with a billion or multi-billion-dollar company. Yeah. And then also it can be all sorts of different industries. And so you have to have a high business acumen and like problem-solving ability.
Yep.
Because I can train you on sales. Yeah. I can't necessarily train you on like how to find the constraint in a $1 billion company's sales process versus a $100 million company versus a company doing 20K a month. Yeah. And then also versus solar versus this industry versus that industry. So it's interesting. One of my hires recently that worked out really well, he had like no experience. I just was like, fuck, this guy's so smart. I just was like, this guy's really smart. Yep. And I knew from his previous position, I was like, man, like that was more complex than this. And he learned it. Yep. So I was like, I think he has a high rate of learning. So he didn't really fall into my normal criteria of a sales guy. Yeah. But I hired him and he was great. He was one of our best hires.
Yeah. If you look at people's like where they're at in their life and when their motivations are going to be highest, that's 1. And then 2, like when they are most driven to solve problems. And if they're in that portion of their life, you know what I mean? Which is different portions for different people. You know, like you got to kind of dig that out and figure out, do they have a natural motivation now? Like most young guys coming out of college or whatever that are like just getting started, they're going to be pretty highly motivated, right? Yeah. You also see a lot of people like, they just went through a big life event, you know what I mean? And now they're really motivated, right? Yep. And so I think that if you can catch onto that with also high cognitive ability, like they're going to be super driven, high cog, that person's is going to be, a rocket ship for performance.
And you also think with the life events thing, because I've noticed in some roles, we do want people who are like, they're trying to push to like whatever their definition of career greatness is for them, right? Yep. In other roles, it's better for us sometimes in certain roles to hire for more of the stability. Like, like there's a specific role I'm thinking about where I know if they're like, yeah, I used to be doing this and trying to achieve these things or running my own business, but now like I have 2 kids at home and we just bought a house and this and that, and like I'm looking for something like secure. Yep. Like that's almost better for like this role over here. Totally. Do you guys think the same way about
100%.
that?
100%. Yeah. Like I mean, bang on, dude. So like it's okay, if you're a young person watching this and you're like, why do I work for all these idiots? I'm smarter than all of them, right? It's like, all right, check it out. It's like there's two things that if you own the company, you're thinking about two things. You're thinking about skill, like they have to be able to do the job and do it well. But then you're thinking about stability, right?
Yeah.
Because you've had the experience where one of your sales directors tried to freaking unionize your sales team or some bull crap, right? Like you've had the experience where, you know, someone that was absolutely key leveraged the crap out of you and said, like, I'm going to bounce, you know, because like they were skilled, but they weren't stable, right? And so like when you're looking for like leaders in a hierarchy, it's like, okay, if you're one individual sales rep and you have a bad day, okay, maybe you impact a couple clients. If you're a sales manager and you have a bad day, right? Like you say something cynical, like something unprofessional, immature, you're unstable in some way. You disrupt, okay, well, all 12 of your sales reps, right? That sales manager disrupts. If you're a sales director, you disrupt your 4 managers and all of their teams, right? And so like as you climb the hierarchy, the risk profile, like you need to be skilled, but the risk profile of the company is almost worse if you're skilled but not stable. You'd almost, not totally, but you'd almost rather have someone stable with no skills, right?
Yeah.
And so like, because that's a more valuable thing to the company, like loyalty, stability, consistency, maturity, professionalism. Like those are the type of people, like if I get to choose who's reporting to me, like I want them to be skilled, but I want all those other things. You know, like I don't want the person that I'm like, what happened? You know, like, and now I got to go try to, you know, fix this whole portion of the organization.
Right. And that's because too, if like let's say your director who has 2 managers or something under them, and then let's say 24 people, if they are unstable or emotional is probably
emotional is a good word.
Is a good word for people to like grasp this.
Yeah.
And they come off of an executive meeting and they're fucking pissed at you because you know, decline their idea, or like they're coming off of a one-on-one and they didn't do as well in their performance review as they thought they were going to do, and they're not going to get a pay raise. And then they say something about like, oh, well, this fucking company, you know, they don't like to pay anybody.
Yeah.
You got like, now that liability is 24x.
Exactly.
Opposed to just the salesperson doing it. So you have to have, and I think about a lot of our managers too. I'm like, they're remarkably, you know, I never thought about it this way until I heard you say it, but they're remarkably like stable people. Yeah. You know, they're like, they can handle the ups and downs and the stress. Like they're not freaking out.
Yeah. And I think that's like when you scale, like the reason why a lot of entrepreneurs sabotage, like they might have a company that could scale, but they kind of either sabotage themselves or like, this sucks, or I don't like managing people. You see a chunk of people that built a strong company and then they're like, realize I just don't want to manage anyone.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's because they had skilled people, but not stable people in their org. And so like they had no solid footing, you know what I mean? Like to no one to rely on in their in their org. And so to them, everything was always fluid and a pain in the butt. And like, oh my gosh, some of that though too is like, some of those people have their own emotional instability that they cascade into the org.
Well, I would say that is at least 50%.
At least
50%. Some of the people I know. If you enjoyed this clip, you can check out the full podcast by clicking on the screen right here to check out the full episode.